Kakadosh Boker Or. We are on Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Samech Gimel Amud Aleph. The Gemara is basically speaking about Elamar Rava. Rava wants to come and he wants to change the explanation of our Mishnah according to Rabbi. And he's saying that our Mishnah is talking about with the fruits, the reasoning of the Isur is not because you're not doing it according to your Chov. Right? So he says, but rather, when he's going to be niftar from the world, he's going to come to him, Rav Oshaya from Olam HaElyon, because he was always answering the Mishnah according to what he said, and according to the Braitot, which means since Rava would always come and explain the Mishnayot, that Rabbeinu HaKadosh would come and he would, leave it according to the Braitot of Rav Oshaya. So therefore, right, Rav Oshaya was a Talmid of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. So therefore, since he was always answering up, he would come and greet him. And by the way, this is a very famous dictum that a lot of times the rabbis actually use. That since, for example, they would come and they would always answer them up. So then, the other rabbi would come out to greet him and say, "Thank you that you always answered me up." In a sense, so there's a lot of that throughout the Gemara. The Tana Rav Oshaya, but Rav Oshaya taught in a Braita, Hare Shaya noshe bechavero mana. Imagine right now, right? You lent a money to your friend, and you were by his storage house. And he tells him, give me my money. I want to purchase chitin. He tells him, listen, chitin yeshli. He says, listen, I don't have the money, but I have the chitin. Right? Why do you want the money? To buy wheat. I have the wheat. So go make the shar of right now. Meaning find out what the price of wheat is right now, right? And then what? And he says, so he comes and he tells him, listen, go give me the price for now. Afterwards, right, when it became already more expensive, he tells him, give me the wheat because I want to sell them and buy wine. Okay, I have wine. Go take the price according to now. It came to the time that the wine was going to be sold. Remember, whenever the wine is going to be sold, or the wheat is going to be sold, the price goes up. Because basically, beforehand, it's like the early price, so therefore it's cheaper. But all of a sudden, so now it becomes a higher price. So he tells him, give me my wine, because I want to sell it, and I want to purchase oil. He tells him, I have oil. He says, in this case, kulam, all of them, im yeshlo, if the guy has, whether it's a chitin, yain, or shemen, whether it's a wheat, oil, or wine, it's going to be mutar. Vim enlo, and if the guy does not have, right, a wheat, oil, or wine, it's going to be asur, which means that even though yatsa shar, right, because since he's only going to be, he's not posek lo bechovo, so therefore you're not allowed to do that because you still need to have, meaning, you have to have the same currency. So I explained this to you once, if you remember, that we said that if let's say you live in Israel and you want to borrow dollars, so you could borrow $1 from me, even it could be $100, $1,000, doesn't matter what, but you have to have $1 still. Why? Because as long as you have the $1, even though you're coming and you're borrowing that money, so therefore it's considered a yeshlo. The yeshlo, even though the price of the dollar is going to fluctuate up and down, when you're going to pay me back the same $1,000, maybe pay me back more. Because when I lent you $1,000, the shot was 3.6. I don't know what. All of a sudden, when you're paying me back, now it's worth 4. So you're paying me extra. So as long as you already have that same dollar, even if it's going to be 1, you have to have it. So it's going to be mutar. So in the year, you have to have the wheat, olive, and oil. Not olives. Wheat, oil, and wine. Because yes, you have to have some wheat. It could be. It doesn't matter what, but you have a little bit of wheat. You have a little bit of oil, a little bit of wine. The second you have one of those things, so even though I'm going to lend you out, I'm going to pay you back as part of your chov, right? As according to the shar of now, it's going to be permitted. So Amar Rava says, Shema mina midroshaya tlat. We learn from here 3 different halachot. Shema mina, we learn from here the mamidim malve al gabe perot. right? That a person that comes and has a milva al chavero, he's allowed to actually pay him back with fruits according to the shar, which is of right now, right? He's allowed to do that. That means I could pay you back with fruits instead of pay you back with liquid, with the money, right? Velo amnin, and we're not going to say delo, right? Isaro bali yadohu. We're not going to say that it's a sur because it's like it looks like a concept that it's going to be a sur of giving you extra or things that so no, you're allowed to. It's going to be number one. Number two, shemamina dieshlo, only if you have those fruits as well. Meaning, number one, you could pay back with fruits and not the cash. Number two, you could do that, but only if you actually have some of the fruits or whatever it is that you're paying back. And number three, shemamina ita Rabbi Yanai, you hold of Rabbi Yanai. The Amar Rabbi Yanai says, mali hen mali demand. What's the difference between the fruits or the money? At the end of the day, it's all the same thing, right? That means just like it's permitted to take the fruits themselves, so you could actually take the money of the fruits as well. And that's what's mashma. So that's what we said, that as long as it came to the time of the fruits to sell and you're going to sell it, it would be permitted according to the shah of the piraon of what that means, even though it's going to be more expensive, and not like the fruits that they did at the beginning. The Itmar was stated. Rav Amar, Rav says, Osin amana beperot, which means you're allowed to be posek on the perot according to the shah of right now, even though it came more expensive afterwards. The enosin amana bedamim, and you're not allowed to do it with the money, which means that you're not allowed to be posek on the perot according to the shara now in order to get the more expensive money. Because since you gave the money, you have to accept the money, and then it looks like ribit. Rabbi Yanai says, no, what's the difference between them and their money? Which means, just like we explained, you're allowed to actually come and take the money, the value of the fruits, right? Even though it actually came and it went up. So the Gemara is going to ask, Meitvei, kulam im yesh lo mutat? Says what? On everything, as long as you have it, it's going to be mutat. Whether it's going to be the wine, whether it's going to be the chitin, whether it's on everything. What does that mean? The malveh came and he actually was mashach the chitim at the beginning, and therefore you already acquired it. So therefore, since he already paid off his chov, so now the chitim are his. So now when they become more expensive, they became more expensive in his property, and therefore he's allowed to take the money, right, or to take wine instead of it. Right, but if he didn't do meshicha, then no. Meaning, remember, the only way of an acquisition, you have to do meshicha. Meshicha is drawing it towards you. So therefore, when I came and I gave you the wheat, and I was paying you back for my loan, and you came and you did meshicha, you acquired it. So now when the price goes up, it's already yours. So therefore, you could actually take the more expensive value, because it's your wheat that went up in price. I gave you the wheat when it was cheaper, and that's what I paid you back as part of my loan. But then when it went up in value, it's yours, so there's no problem. Okay, so ask the Gemara, so what's the chidush? Obviously then, so he says, Ela kegon shichelo kenen zavit. Says, no, you actually came and you designated a corner. So since you designated a corner to place the wheat, right, that you purchased, so therefore, right, he says, even though it's not a kinyan gamur, he says, since he's miyachelo kenen zavit, right? He comes and he says he designated a corner, so therefore we're going to say it's a kilu that you actually acquired it. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Hamani, who is this? Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar that he says, Tzad echad b'ribit mutar. One tzad in ribit is going to be mutar. Which means that a ribit, which is not done through a loan, but it's done through a sale, and therefore there's a safek whether bichal it's going to come to ribit or not, so it's going to be mutar according to the shita. Meaning ribit has to be, if you remember, the ribit of the Torah is something which is fixed from the beginning and it's fixed. Here, it could never become ribit, maybe. We're not sure. So since we're not really sure, that's why it's going to be mutar. Right? The Tanya, as we learned in the Braita, what happens if you're lent out a field to your friend and then afterwards you came and you sold the field? Right? If he's eating the perot, it's going to be mutar. But if it's the lokeach that's eating the perot, it's going to be asur. Right? Why? Because maybe then it's actually paying back the loan and then it's going to be a problem of ribit. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, even if it's going to be bizman shalokeach ochel perot, even if the purchaser is eating the fruits, it's still going to be mutar. Right? He says, why? Because it's only one sad of ribit, meaning maybe it won't be ribit at all. Maybe he's just going to finish it off and that's it. So Rabbi Yehuda, there was a story of Baitus Ben Zunin that he made his field into a mechet. Right? and therefore there was no problem. So says the Gemara, the rabbi said, Misham Raya, Amnulo Misham Raya, Mocher Ochel Pelotaya. It was the Mocher, not the Lokeach. And therefore it's not like what you said. So that's why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah permitted, because it was only the Mocher eating it and not the Lokeach. If it's the Lokeach, it could be it's a suit. But if it's Mocher, which is eating the fruits, so if it's going to be mutar. So my benau, what's the difference? Rabbi says the difference between them is one side of ribit. One side of ribit means that it's the ribit done in a sale, and it could be that there was no ribit ever going to be done. So Rava comes and he says, no, that's not the difference between them. Ribit al menat la'achzir ikvenau. The difference is, can you charge ribit on condition to give it back? Right? That's a machloket. Are you allowed to take ribit on condition to give it back? So Amar Rava comes and he says, Hashta Damar Rabbi Yanai. Now that Rabbi Yanai came and he said these words, right? Of mali hen mali demand. What's the difference between the fruits and the money of the fruits? Right? 63b. Amrina, we are going to say mali dmehen umalehen. What's the difference between the money and the fruits? Nami Amrina. Are we also going to say the same thing? And we're going to look at the shot of the shuk even though you don't actually have it? Which means if you already say what's the difference between the fruits or the money, flip it. What's the difference between the money and the fruits? So therefore, even though you don't have the fruits, I could say, what's the value? And then I could pay you. You don't have the fruits, doesn't matter. So 8v, Rav Papa, Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua l'Rava. Ask Rav Papa and Rav Huna ben Yeshua to Rava. Kulam, right? Im yesh lo mutar, im en lo asur. If you have the fruits, it's permitted. If you don't have the fruits, it's prohibited. So Amar Rava, Amar Lahu, he comes and he says, Hata malva'a lehachazvine. There it's a loan. And here it's a purchase. Remember, a loan is the problem of rebit. A sale is only the Rabbanan. It's not Doraita. There's no Doraita. It was only by a loan. Okay? Fine. Rabbi Rav Yosef Damran Tavayhu. My tamam Rabbanan. Why did the rabbi say Poskina Shabashuk? You're allowed to come and you're allowed to be posek according to the meaning. You could take the price of the fruits in the marketplace, even though you don't actually have the fruits. So the Elmaleh, but he says Shakilna tivutach v'shadya chizrei. He says your tova and your chesed is thrown on the kotzim, which means that I don't want it at all. Right? That means you thought you were doing a chesed. It doesn't help me. Maya hanali. What does it help me now? Because the fruits became more expensive. If I had fruit money in my hands, I would have actually bought it cheap. Meaning, what actually happened? I asked you for my money back. You told me, listen, I don't have the money, but I got fruits. So he gave you the fruits. Now, 1 second. If I can't actually benefit from these fruits, I could tell you what, you're doing me a chesed, right? If I had the money that I asked you for, I would have been able to buy the fruits at a cheap price. Now the fact that I don't have the money and you give me the fruits, so now what? I'm going to lose out? What's going on here? Yeah, exactly. You know, like then, like, So Amalei Abayel Rav Yosef says about Rav Yosef Elameata. So we're going to find out now. Mutal ilvot seah b'seah. You're allowed to come and be loveh a seah b'seah. So again, remember the seah b'seah means is that you're allowed to lend out one seah for another seah. Mishum, because dematzi amale, because you could actually say shekilna tivutach v'shadya chizri. Well, you're doing me a favor. Tamale, you could tell him chite dekatche baklavai. He could tell him what I would have left the chitin in my otzar, and I wouldn't have lent them to you at all, and it wouldn't have gotten ruined right through the geshamim. If I wouldn't have actually lent them, it would have gotten ruined, right? So therefore, obviously, I did gain something. So he says, Amaleh hatam alva'a chazina. Again, the same thing. There's a difference between alva'a or there's a difference between a loan and a sale. So Amaleh Ravada bar Abba l'Rava. Says Ravada bar Abba to Rava. V'habayla meit of zuze l'safsida. He says, 1 second, you have to give money to the sirsur that he's going to find. Right? So Amaleh says, the kayav lei nami. He says, there's no heter to be posek the perot and to actually give it when it's getting more expensive and everything, right? But only if you're giving it, if there's going to be dmei sirsur. Dmei sirsur is like the money of like a middleman. So you get money as an agent. So that's what you get, the money of a sirsur. The Ravashi says the inshe inu zuze the inshe inu avdele safside. He says the money of a person they make him into an agent, which means that when a person has money mizuman, right? So they come to him, the people of the perot and all these things, and you don't need the sirsurim. Okay? Rabba Rav Yosef, Rabba Rav Yosef, both of them say, Hayman de'av zuze atara charifa, somebody that's giving money right from the beginning, and he's going to be posek on the perot, right? At the first thing, tzarich litchazuye levedare. He says he has to look at he has to go to the bet agranot, which is the storage house of the seller, when he's actually doing the threshing, and therefore, right, he has to see what are you coming, lemai, what are you coming for? If you're coming to actually purchase fruits to make a kinyan, alokani, you didn't make a kinyan. And if it's going to be because of the mishepara, remember mishepara was that if you made a deal with someone and then you want to retract, right, and you still didn't make the kinyans, so you already have, right, the mishepara. So says the Gemara, leolam really be'emet, we're talking about to accept the mishepara. Uman diyai v'zuzeh atara charifa. Somebody that's giving the money in the first shahar is going to be samuch lekatzir. So therefore, lebei tare tzlata yahiv. He's giving it to 2 or 3 different people and not to one person. And he doesn't actually want to buy from everybody, meaning he wants to see who has the best fruits. So he puts a deposit by all, and then he wants to see who has the best fruits, and he's going to take it from the best person. Right? That's what he's doing. Yeah, he puts money by 3 different people, and he's going to see who has the best fruits. And he's only taking from one of them. So if he comes and he sees him, he's already somech dato. Vilo, and if he doesn't see him, he says, Amina dashkachat pere deshapira mididi v'shakal. He found better fruits, so therefore he took it. Which one? Which story? So now says the Gemara, Amar Ravashi says, Hashta damarta mishum mismach data. Now you're talking about smichut dat, which means that he's depending upon your dat or not. So afilu ashkeche beshuka v'amale, even if he found him in the shuk and he told him, samcha dateh. Right? That means even though he didn't come to the bet agranot, but he saw him in the shuk and he told him, I'm relying upon your fruits, that's already a misha para, meaning that if he's going to retract now he's got a misha para. Okay? So Amar Rav Nachman says, Klal al Rebbitia, the klal of Rebbitia is kol agar natal le'asur. The klal of Rebbitia is scharam tanat maot, which means you're waiting for your money. Waiting for money, that's asur. Even if it's going to be mekach u'memkar. So therefore, if you're going to make it cheaper now, just so that way he gives you the money, right, in order to buy it, that's also going to be a problem. Rav Nachman says, Hayman diyai v'zuzeh lekira, somebody that's going to come and give the money, right, in order to get the shava afterwards. He says, "V'ka'azli arba." Now, it was 4 chalot of shava for every zuz. Elmaleh, and he tells him, "Give me 5. Right? I'm going to give you 5. Right? And then what happens? He says, so he gave him the money from now. It's new gabe shadi. So therefore, he says, and he's got it. It's going to be permitted. If he doesn't have, it's going to be asur. Meaning the same thing. You remember the mitzvah? I said, "Oh, 1 second. How much is it? It's only 4. Give me 5. I'll give you the money now." Meaning I'll pay you up front. I'll give you now, even more than up front. I'll give you the money from now, but just give me 5. So maybe that means you're paying, you're paying extra. You're paying rebit, right? As if to say, because the guy beforehand he was gonna get paid, let's say $100 for 4. Now he's getting $100 for 5, but he just wants the money. He needs the cash. So that's the rebit in itself. So says the Gemara Pshita, obviously. So says the Gemara Otzicha, what are we dealing with? He says you already have an ashray in the city. Okay, so I would have thought to say, since he's got, right, the ashray in the mata in the city, it's like that, until my son comes or until I find the key, and therefore that's when it's considered a key, you have it. And remember, you said that as long as you have the same fruits or you have the things, so there's no problem of rebit. Since you're lacking collections, that means basically like this: you've got people that the creditors, they owe you money in the city, but you didn't actually collect. So the fact that you didn't actually collect it, that's why it's going to be a problem, because you didn't collect it, so it doesn't help. Rav Nachman says, "Hayman de Ozi pshite mechavre." Somebody that's going to be borrowing coins from his friend, the ashkach bei tufaina, and he found that there's more coins right? That the Malveh told him. If it's going to be that the person is making a mistake, so he's obligated to give it back. And if not, matana be'alma hu di'ayvle. So it's going to be a matana be'alma. What does it mean? He's giving a present. Well, that's it. So hechi dami, what's the case exactly? What does that mean? So Amar Ravacha, Breder Rav Yosef, Ravacha says, Basiriyata v'chum shaita. He says, in the things which are going to be divided between tens and fives. What does that mean that they're divided between tens and fives? Meaning he made a mistake that, for example, instead of coming and it says over here, Shemana shalosh pe'amim eser, instead of arba pe'amim eser. So he made a mistake of 3 times in 10 instead of 4 times in 10. Right? Or he went and he did 5 5. So basically he made a mistake. But if it's going to be much more than that, so then it's going to be a problem. Okay?